Let's shift gears a little bit. I know you've worked with him. I think we're all big and huge Freddie Hubbard fans. And there's a famous video of you and Gary walking into the studio, and they see Freddie, and Freddie sees, he's like, oh, it's Freddie's date, mind you. And he's like, oh, Chuck Findley, Gary Grant, I'm not playing. He's too nervous. He's like, I'm not playing with these great players. And I think it was for the Ride Like the Wind CD and video, and it was a studio orchestra. You guys were a part of it. Maybe you could talk a little bit about some of your memories of working with Freddie and your feelings about him and influence he might have had on you. And then I understand there's he pulled a bit of a fast one on you guys that night.
Yeah, he did.
If you don't mind sharing that story, I know people would love to hear it.
Oh,
if you don't mind.
I think if they don't know it, it's beautiful. Freddie was absolutely, oh gosh, what can you say about Freddie? You know, I grew up listening to Freddie. I mean, when I first heard Freddie, I just couldn't believe my ears. Jesus, I remember driving in the car with a good friend of mine, Val Kent, a drummer from Cleveland, who's one of my favorite drummers of all time. And we'd be driving, and Freddie came out, and the first time we heard him on the radio, I said, Jesus, you know, with Art Blakey. I couldn't believe it. I said, who is this guy? You know, I mean, of course, Clifford, you know, was the man for me. And Miles, yes and no. I mean, I love Miles, but boy, when I heard Freddie, I said, Jesus, he just took it to another level altogether. And I was like, wow, this is outrageous, you know. Yeah. And then to meet him and know him like a brother, that's another world altogether. We did many things together, you know, and we'd play in Dante's. I met some Dante's. We'd play together on Dante's. He'd come sit in with the sextet, and we'd play and jam and groove. And Freddie was a dear, dear friend. I called him Hubs. He called me Findley. Yeah, Findley. My wife says he has the softest lips you ever. Freddie has these beautiful big lips, and we had Dante. Hey, Mrs. Findley, Fearless, Mrs. Fearless, whatever you call her. And he was just a joy to be around. You know, Freddie had a lot of fun. You could tell in his playing. You know, the personalities come out of the horn, and Freddie's definitely did. His personality of that drive, that love, that energy he had came out of that bell of his horn, and that was his personality. Going back to that album, that was an interesting album because Freddie wasn't afraid. Whatever you said, this guy, no. He was actually thrilled that we were there because he didn't know what he was going to do. This was something out of his ordinary to do something. This was a live direct-to-disc album. That was not recorded. That was live. And it was on the needle, you know. So what we did was, okay. But now it was me and Gary and Freddie. Now we had all these lines together. I mean, as you well know, trumpets, you know, they could kill you on the trumpet. And that's what was happening. It didn't matter with the saxophone player so much, or even actually the trombone player, the Walters played. But we had to bust it. It was a trumpet album. So what we had to do was really hard. And so I had to finally say, you know, and not for myself only, but for Freddie as well. I had to tell Alan Ferguson, I said, look, you can rehearse it all you want again. Please go right ahead with it, but we can't play. I said, Freddie and I and Gary, we just can't do it. I said, if you want to take and you want it to be right, we got to rest. And so, because I mean, Freddie was over the blowing. He was killing us. The music was killing us. So I just had to say, we got to just wait for the take. So that's what happened. So we did like, I want to say it was 3 days. I'm not sure, 2 or 3. It might have been only 2, but 2 double sessions for an album. That was probably what it was. It was a lot of work. So anyhow, the second day, I think it was then, it was Gary's birthday. Gary Grant's birthday. So we go in and I said, Gary, I said, as a birthday present to you, I said, you know, I won't give you any lead at all. You don't have to play any lead at all. I'll play all the lead. That's a birthday present to you. And so Gary did it, and that's when we did what's it, Birdland. And so now, at Freddie, I said, Gary's birthday. Oh, okay, so, well, after we finish here, we'll go out and we'll have dinner after we're done. So we went to Martoni's, and I don't know if you know, Martoni's was a famous place for the Rat Pack. A great restaurant. They really catered to musicians. It was fantastic. So after we finished, we go to Martoni's, and we had our own little area in the back with me and Gary and Freddie. We sit down, and Freddie says, "Bottle more Chandon." So we get a bottle more Chandon. Was it Mount Chandon or was it Cristal? I can't remember. It was a wonderful champagne. It was Perrier-Jouet. A bottle of Perrier-Jouet. That's what it was. A bottle of Perrier-Jouet. So we got a bottle of Perrier-Jouet there. We were sitting there. Poured the wine and the champagne. And said, hey, Gary, happy birthday. Happy birthday. We're having all kinds of pasta, sausage, and peppers, and just grooving. And we're drinking the champagne. Freddie says, another bottle. Another bottle comes. Well, we went through about 4 bottles or so. And Freddie says, just go to the bathroom. He gets up to leave. He says, I'll be right back. Go to the toilet. He never came back. He split and left us with the bill. He ordered all the champagne and invited us out to Martoni's in the split. But that was typical Freddie. How could you not love him? I mean, you loved him. I mean, but there are stories of everybody that worked with Freddie. I mean, all of them. Yeah. Every one of them knows that he was wild. And there were times when you wanted to hate him, they say, but you couldn't. You know, you just couldn't hate such a wonderful, sweet man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that, Chuck. That's great. Let's shift over to the Tonight Show band. You were with the Tonight Show for years. You were the only musician, I think, who was a part of Doc Severinsen's band with the Johnny Carson era, and then part of Branford Marsalis' band with the Jay Leno era. Can you talk a little bit about that gig, and in particular, what it was like working with Doc and hearing Johnny every night?
Doc was great. Doc was great, and that was the end of an era with that big band, because after that, then there wasn't a big band on TV. Right. Only maybe on like a telethon or something, but other than that, they disappeared. It was wonderful. The nice thing about that gig was there was no contract. I had no, with Jay, you signed a contract, and you basically had to be there all the time. You know, the money was better, but you couldn't do other things. With Doc and with the Tonight Show with Johnny, I could still do all my sessions that I was talking about, the things that I did. I could, if I had a busy day or something other that I wanted to do, I'd do that. And then also after you finish the show, you could go, there was always sessions afterwards as well. So I was in the studios, and then I was at NBC, and then I was doing something afterwards, or going to Dante's, playing at Dante's. So it was real nice. And the band, I mean, come on, it was Snookie Young, Conte Condoli, myself and Maury Harris played fourth trumpet. He was always the staple. They always called him the luckiest fourth trumpet player in LA. But Maury played the fourth book very well. You know, sometimes he'd take it up the octave and loud and out of tune. I said, Maury, please just play it where it is, please. He just wanted to get off the bottom, but it was not good. So, but sitting next to Snookie and count, my goodness. Yeah. Wow, what a lesson. I mean, you can't buy that. And I was fortunate all my career to sit next to people like that. But Snookie, I remember hearing him for the first time when I was in 1963 in New York. My brother was playing the Americana Hotel with the Tommy Dorsey Band. My brother flew me in. And at the Metropole, back then they had big bands at the Metropole. And so I remember Lionel Hampton's band being there. And I was 16? Oh, I was 16. I was 16. 1965 was. And I was standing there, and the Metropole was, I don't know if you knew the place or what it was like, but it was at the bar. Everybody stood up in a line. It was like Wayne Cochran and C.C. Riders. They stood up like all the way down the line. So I walk in. I just snuck in. I mean, back then, in New York, it's probably still like that. You just go in with a group of people. They don't check you for your ID or anything. I just walk right in. And I'm standing there, and the trumpet section was Dick Forrest was playing fourth. I don't know if you know who Dick Forrest was. Jimmy Nottingham, Ernie Royal, and Snookie. And I walk in, and they're playing the trumpets are first. So I walk in there, the trumpets. And I got as far as Snookie, and I just stopped. I couldn't go any further. I just stood there, and I listened to Snookie right in front of him. And I never heard anything like that in my life. I just stood there like, wow, this is just unbelievable. I mean, Snookie had the greatest, most pure, beautiful, round, gorgeous sound, and his plunges. I mean, he had the best shake. I mean, there's nobody ever that has a better shake than Snookie that I've ever heard, ever. And I mean, he was just so magical. And then for him to be another brother of mine, of course, like I said, Sweets was another one. To be sitting next to Sweets and listen to him play. Conte Condoli, my goodness, probably one of the most underrated, not underrated, but Jesus, the most brilliant talent. Every time you play a solo, I think to myself, why didn't I think of that? Because it was just so brilliant. You know? But anyhow, so that was the time so with Doc. You know, and Doc was great. He was very, whatever you wanted to do was okay. Doc was very loose as far as that. And then with the Jay, that was different. Branford was fantastic. Branford came out and got that gig. The thing is, it could have been a big band still if Branford wanted that. It could have. The big band could still be on that show right to this day if Branford wanted a big band. But he went with a smaller group, the 8-piece group, and then it was set. So they said, well, we don't need a big band. You know, because these people, these suits and these management people, they have no idea. They don't have any clue. They don't care.
Right.
I mean, the money was the same amount of money for 8 people as it was for the big band. So it could have been the big band as well. So it could have been there. But I guess it was time. It was time for a change. And it was really nice because we got to play mainstream jazz with Branford. It was really, really nice. And then when Branford left, then it changed. And I won't get into that, but it changed a lot.
This year, shifting gears again, the brass world lost one of its great players, and I know a very, very dear friend of yours, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the late, great Derek Watkins a little bit and what he meant to you and your relationship with him over the years.
Well, he was marvelous, I'll tell you. I met Derek in 1970. I had just moved here from Vegas, so I was here probably a year. I was, 1 year. It was the summer of 1970. And Tom Jones came in and we did the Tom Jones show. Well, he brought his band, and his band was Terry Jenkins on drums, Johnny, can't think of his name, the MD. And Derek was the trumpet player. Big Jim Sullivan on guitar, that was his band. It's not unusual. So anyhow, so Derek comes, I meet him, and in that band, it was me. The trumpets were added, because Derek was the lead player with Tom. It was Derek Watkins, myself, Rachel Scarry, and Don Rader were the trumpets. And the trombone section was Charlie Loper, Billy Byers, and Kenny Shorey played bass trombone.
Wow.
It was really a nice brass section. And Billy back then, Billy was still playing, of course, back then. Beautiful. But Charlie Loper was playing lead. And Derek, boy, he just nailed it. I never heard anything like that. It was just phenomenal. Probably the best, I'll tell you, he could, once again, I mentioned before about Tony Cadillac to you, but about being efficient. It was just like, he could play a double beat like, and just like nothing, you know, top, and he could hit that double beat like it was, you know, like it was a low beat, or beat in the staff. And, you know, soft, loud, however you wanted. I mean, he was that consistent and fantastic. We hit it off immediately. He was like 2 years older than me, but we were both kids. Ironic thing is that I had a green Alfa Romeo that I just bought in 1969. Derek had one green Alfa Romeo in London on the right side drive. He was the Chuck Findley of Europe, and I was the Derek Watkins of Europe. Yeah. You know, of America he was. And it was, I mean, we just hit it, unbelievable how we just hit it, like we gelled and we became brothers instantly. Trumpet brothers, I mean, right off the bat. It was phenomenal. We lost him too early, you know.
Yeah,
it was 68. He died of sarcoma, it was lower bowel cancer. And so, you know, it was tough. I was on the road, and it was kind of hard. But he was, as far as a trumpet player, Derek, Billy Byers said he was and Billy was brilliant. Billy said he was the finest lead trumpet player he ever heard in his life. And I'd have to say, as far as I'm concerned, he was as well. For me, my favorite would be Derek. If I wanted to hire somebody as a lead trumpet player, it would be Derek.
Wow, doesn't get no higher praise than that. So
yeah, he was that brilliant.
As we kind of wind down, Chuck, when I look at your career, to me, it's the most prolific recording career any brass player has ever had, and I don't think it'll ever be equaled. Largely because of the talent level, and also because of the time and the era, and how much music was being recorded, we are all grateful for you for setting the bar so high and doing such amazing work over your career. I don't even know if this is possible for you because there's so much that you've done. But if you had like a half a dozen projects that stand out in your mind and say, you know what, that was one of my favorites, and this was, do you have a few that you'd say, wow, these are some things that I just really, really were extra special? Yeah,
there are actually. There was one album we did with Al Jarreau. Jay Graydon produced it. It was Jerry, myself, Gary, and Bill, the four of us. Oh, jeez, it was. I mean, it was phenomenal. It really was incredible stuff that we did. When you mentioned before, as far as pitching and all that, we punched in so many different things we didn't need to punch in because Jay Graydon just wanted to do it. We played everything on the money, all the lines, all the licks, everything we played was perfect. The pitch was perfect. Everything was fine. It was brilliant. That album, I have to say, was one of my favorites. A lot of the Earth, Wind & Fire sessions we did also, those are very memorable. Concert for Bangladesh. You know, now we're talking about something totally different. That is probably the highlight of my career. I mean, that's something that I would say that you know, goes down in history. That will always be there. I played trumpet, bass trombone, and flute. And the other thing was a joy. I mean, we wasn't allowed a trumpet, so I was playing bass trombone. Not tenor, but bass trombone, flute, and trumpet. And it was great. It was Jim Horn. And the concert for Bangladesh was, well, actually, yeah, I did. No, not on that. That was on the tour. On the concert for Bangladesh, I just played trumpet. It was me and Ollie Mitchell, Jim Horn, Jackie Kelso, Alan Beitler, a baritone player and saxophone player, who lives in Dallas, and Lou McRae on trombone. Wow. And it was wonderful. And we went back, and it was 1971. I remember in New York walking down Broadway, and Jim Horn, who was the section leader, he put the horn section together. Jim says, "We need rock and roll shirts," is what he said. So Jackie Kelso was like the oldest hippie, you know. I was, "Hey, Jackie, you know, we'll go down Broadway, you lead the way." So Jack, we were walking down, we're all in cowboy boots, and we were walking down, and we were having a great time just in New York. And Jackie Kelso's leading the pack. He's like a half a block ahead of us, you know. Yeah, these look good, you know. We had to find these really far out looking rock and roll shirts, and so we did find them, and the concert was great. And it was all, you know, for UNICEF. It was all for concert country for Bangladesh, which is what we did. So I mean, for something I would say as what I have done in my life for people, that would be the one, the concert of Bangladesh. And then we did a tour with Ravi Shankar as well. That was very interesting because I learned about T-highs and Indian music, and it was great. And they learned Western music. So we're traveling on a plane together, and Ala Raka, the tabla players, singing T-highs to me. And I'm writing some licks to work for a T-high, you know, 11 and a half. You know, so it was really lovely. I mean, it just shows that the culture. The beautiful thing about music is that we have our own language, and the culture is just so special. Yeah. My dad told me that when I was a little boy. He said, "Son, one thing we have that nobody else has is we have our own language. And you go anywhere in the world and speak your language." That is so true. Yeah,
oh, those are great words. Chuck, as we finish up today, I always like to ask a player of your stature, when you look back and you have young folks that are coming up nowadays that dream of possibly being a Chuck Findley someday, if you had a piece of advice you'd give to a young person coming up, what might that be?
Well, when I do master classes in schools and workshops, I always tell them the times have changed, and they certainly have. But there's always room for a great player. Always. There always will be. It's just, but you have to, one thing you have to be, though, you have to be very versatile. I mean, if I could say, you can't just be a lead player. You can't be just a jazz player. You gotta have more than that. You gotta listen. I would listen to every kind of music there is. Everything. Listen to country music. Listen to rock and roll. Listen to listen to Dixieland. Listen to mainstream jazz. Listen to old 20s, you know, listen to Bix Beiderbecke, just listen, and grab everything you can possibly grab from these people, because you put that into your motor, your brain, and it's there. I mean, there are so many motors in your brain that have never been used, that are just waiting for you to start that engine and use it, and it's all there, and you need to grab, all of this and just absorb it all, because you never know when you go in the morning. I never know if I have to, whatever kind of solo I have to play. It's a Dixieland solo, or a mainstream jazz solo, a high note solo. You got to be able to play high notes too, like Maynard. I mean, I don't like to. I don't think too many trumpet players really do, but it's something that you may need. So if you can be as versatile as possible, I think that is the key. It's really needed, and also definitely learn, learn your computer, learn how to sample. I mean, they sample so many things, but it's available. It's always available. So look at young players out there, and I want you to just go for it. If that's what your dream is, if you want it, you can have whatever you want.
Wow, that's great advice. Well, Chuck, listen, thank you so much for spending time today and taking time out of your busy schedule. And most of all, thanks for all the incredible playing and inspiration. I mean, for me personally, it's been ever since I got that article, I mean, it's been like constant. And
Still got it.
So fortunate that I've gotten to work with you and hear you. And so thank you for shedding a light on your extraordinary career and everything you've done. And we look forward to seeing what's the next chapter for Chuck Findley, because it's been an amazing ride. And thanks again for being here today. And we will see all of you next time on Bone2Pick.
Thank you, Mike.